What if something as small as a smile could lead you to the executioner's block? Today, we see a smile as innocent, an act of kindness, politeness, or even nervousness. But in one forgotten kingdom of medieval Europe, a smile was not safe. It was rebellion. This is the story of a ruler so paranoid, so consumed by fear of mockery, that he declared happiness itself to be a crime. To him, a smile was not a friendly gesture, it was a weapon. He believed that those who smiled in his presence were laughing at him, plotting against him, or spreading disloyalty. Under his reign, silence ruled. Laughter disappeared from homes. Marketplaces grew quiet. Even children were warned not to laugh. His subjects lived under constant fear, because one misplaced smile could mean death. This is no fairy tale. It is a chilling reminder of how power, twisted by fear, can strip away the most human of emotions. To understand how such a strange law could exist, we must first understand the world of medieval courts. These courts were not only political centers, they were theaters of power. Kings and queens were treated like living gods. Their words carried the weight of life and death. In such a place, etiquette was everything. A wrong bow, a misplaced glance, even silence itself could be judged as insult. And insult, when the king's authority was absolute, was often punished harshly. Courtiers, nobles, advisors, servants studied every detail of behavior. Because survival meant appearing respectful at all times, nothing was safe from scrutiny. Even the smallest gesture could be misinterpreted. It was in this fragile environment that our king's paranoia took root. Surrounded by fear, he began to imagine hidden enemies everywhere. In his mind, the smile became the ultimate symbol of disloyalty. The king who banned smiling did not rise to power in peace. His childhood was marked by betrayal and mistrust. He grew up hearing of assassins in the night, of rulers dethroned because they trusted too easily. Suspicion became his shield. By the time he inherited the crown, his kingdom was already divided. Rival nobles fought for influence, rebellions flared in the provinces, and foreign powers watched for weakness. To him, showing doubt meant inviting death. So he built his throne on fear, not trust. At first, his suspicion seemed ordinary. He demanded loyalty oaths, punished careless words, and kept spies close. But soon, these habits became obsession. Every gesture, every word, every glance became a possible threat. And then his paranoia turned to something darker. He began to fear even smiles. To him, a smile was never innocent. It meant mockery, conspiracy, betrayal. And in his court, appearances were everything. The breaking point came on what should have been an ordinary day. A trusted courtier, who had served him loyally for years, was seen smiling during a royal gathering. Perhaps it was politeness, perhaps nervousness. To everyone else, it was nothing. But to the king, it was treason carved into the man's face. He saw mockery, rebellion, danger. His fury was immediate. The man was dragged away and executed on the spot. Fear swept through the court. In that moment, everything changed. Smiling was no longer harmless, it was treason. From that day, the royal palace grew silent. The great halls, once filled with whispers and cautious laughter, became lifeless. Courtiers stood stiff and pale, afraid that even the twitch of a lip could doom them. Servants trained their faces into masks. The king declared that smiles were treachery. Punishments grew harsh. A knight was executed for smiling at a feast. A maid was whipped nearly to death for laughing while pouring wine. The message was clear. Joy itself was now a crime. But the fear spread beyond the palace. Villages, towns, marketplaces all learned the new rule. The king's spies could be anywhere. Festivals grew silent. Dancers moved stiffly. Musicians played without cheer, and crowds stood like statues. Weddings became grim ceremonies where even brides and grooms exchanged vows without a smile. Parents warned their children never to laugh in public. Markets, once full of jokes and haggling, turned into silent exchanges. The sound of laughter disappeared, replaced by heavy silence. The kingdom became a prison without walls. As years passed, the king's paranoia deepened. His fear of smiling spread into fear of all joy. He believed that sorrow meant loyalty, silence meant obedience, but joy was rebellion. To enforce his twisted vision, he built a web of spies and informants. They watched both palace and countryside. A child's giggle, a neighbor's chuckle, a smile at a festival, and he could bring soldiers to your door. People began to distrust one another. Families hid emotions, friends avoided friends. Communities grew hollow, punishments became spectacles. Public executions were staged to terrify the masses. No one was safe, noble or peasant, priest or soldier. Even loyal servants fell under suspicion. The king himself grew lonelier. He stopped attending festivals and ceremonies. He lived in shadowed halls, guarded by soldiers who dared not smile. Yet even they, he believed, mocked him in secret. The more he tried to control joy, the more he lost peace of mind. His reign became not order, but madness. Yet even in the darkest times, people resist. In this kingdom, laughter became rebellion. Behind closed doors, families whispered jokes. Children giggled in secret. For a moment, they tasted freedom. Among nobles, secret gatherings formed. There, away from spies, people shared anger, frustration, and sometimes laughter. The king could crush many things, but not the human spirit. People learned to smile with their eyes, to find hope in silence. Small acts of courage planted seeds of resistance. Slowly, a storm was building. Paranoia is a fire that consumes its master. The more the king punished, the more isolated he became. Guards, advisors, even his household lived in dread. He accused loyal men of betrayal. Knights were executed for imagined smirks. Ministers imprisoned for crimes that never existed. The court grew empty. Finally, those closest to him, the guards he trusted least, the nobles who had lost loved ones, turned against him. His downfall was swift. Betrayed by his own circle, stripped of power, he was left broken, consumed by the fear he had created. The man who silenced laughter was destroyed by his own paranoia. His kingdom was scarred. The silence he had forced did not vanish quickly. Families struggled to laugh again. Children raised in fear of smiling did not know how to show joy. Communities felt hollow long after he was gone. Historians remembered him not as a strong ruler, but as a warning. His strange law was spoken of in hushed tones, almost unbelievable, yet real enough to haunt generations. The lesson was clear. Even the smallest freedoms, like the right to smile, are precious. When taken away, human life becomes fragile under tyranny. The story of the king who executed people for smiling may sound too strange to be true, but it carries a timeless message. It shows how fear can twist power, how suspicion can destroy trust, and how even the simplest joys can be stolen by tyranny. In the end, he could not kill joy. Secret smiles survived, hidden laughter endured. And it was his cruelty, not their joy, that destroyed him. History leaves us with this reminder. Freedom is not just about armies or laws. It is about the right to smile, to laugh, and to live without fear. When even a smile becomes a crime, tyranny has reached its darkest form.